Nejstarší doklady o chovech včel v úlech.
The oldest document about beekeeping in hives stem from Egypt and are around 4,000 years old. Bringing parts of hollow tree inhabited by honeybees in the vicinity of the beekeeper's dwelling was an important achievement in the history of beekeeping. This enabled the beekeepers to work more intensely with the colonies, thus resulting in an enormous overall development of beekeeping and in new methods of winning honey. The most important of them, which we now want to present to you, is beekeeping with hive supers. The records on world beekeeping say that about 70% of bee colonies are kept in hive supers. These, so it is guessed, even produce 90% of the honey output. With these data on hand, a reorientation in the Middle European beekeeping tradition should be initiated. The main object of beekeeping with hive supers is the cultivation of strong colonies under more natural conditions in larger living rooms. Let us observe bees who habitate a hollow tree. They store honey and pollen above the brood nest area, which grows during the honey flow downwards in opposition to a winter cluster, which moves upwards. According to room division into hive bodies, one classifies deep, shallow and combined hive super systems. In order that total honeycomb surface remains a unit, correct spacing between the supers and the bottom bar thickness must be kept. Deep super beekeeping is described when frames more than 22 centimeters high are used. This method was developed and tested by means of the Tachov hive super system in the beekeeping center of the State Agricultural Farm in Tachov. The super contains 9 frames, 39 by 24 centimeters in the cold way. Honeybee colonies are set for wintering in 2 supers with 15 to 20 kilogram winter food. The first spring inspection is carried out as soon as the weather permits, and that is usually during the pussy willow bloom. By lifting the cover, we can see how many walking spaces are occupied, which gives an estimation of the strength of the colony, and we assess the amount of food reserve. The behavioral pattern of the bees indicates the queen's presence. Only when we are uncertain of her presence or of the amount of brood, we would open the colony. We differentiate between strong colonies who occupy more than 1 super and those of medium strength fully occupying 1 super. Weak colonies occupying less than 1 super do not guarantee any good development. These, after a medical checkup, will be combined with other colonies or supported by means of reserve colonies with new queens. Insufficient food reserve under 5 kg is immediately supplemented with sugar candy. When the bees have fully occupied the top super, it's showing good brood pattern, and also 1/3 of the lower super is besieged, it might coincide with cherry and plum tree blossoming, we can reverse the supers. The queen changes into the top super, where she within 7 to 10 days finishes the egg laying, thus greatly enlarging the brood nest. Due to reversing the hive bodies, the food store previously above comes nearer to the entrance. This stimulates the bees anew to transfer the food back to the top. If, by reversing the supers, our aims are achieved, in the space of 3 weeks both supers should be fully occupied and the half of the 10 centimeter high bottom board. This happens shortly before the winter ray blossom. We now prepare a third super by putting in side combs, an empty frame in the middle and filling up with comb foundations.
Ostatní vyplníme mezi stěnami.
The top super we put at the bottom, on top of it the super with comb foundations, then the queen excluder, and finally the original bottom super. The time for introducing a super with foundations is chosen with extreme care. Setting up too early, the colony would not manage to occupy the added room, and to draw the cells, the colony suffers a relapse in the development. Too late leads to conditions conducive to swarming with all its negative consequences. In 4 to 5 days, we inspect the super above the queen excluder to see if the queen is there, the evidence being the presence of eggs. In case the queen remained above, we would reverse back the supers. During the rape or acacia flowering, maintenance is reduced to inspection of the honey storage area and swarm prevention measures. By strong populous colonies, we set the fourth super with comb foundations under the excluder, or the super with empty combs above the excluder, so that brood chamber and honey storage area consist each of 2 supers. By the strongest colonies, the best swarm prevention measure is to split the colony into 2 parts. We remove the honey crop from the 2 to 3 upper supers after the rape and acacia blossom, as well as from the drawn combs, which we replace with new foundations. Extracted virgin combs can be advantageously used to strengthen the split colonies. After the harvest of rape and acacia honey, dearth of nectar can occur. At the same time, colony inspections indicate the necessity to replace the queens. This we do every 2 years in the traditional way by means of added queen cages. The suspension of any new comb foundation we finish by mid-June. We take out the dark forest honeydew honey at an amount of at least 6 to 8 kilos per colony. After the last honey harvest, as a rule around the 20th of July, an important phase of preparing the bee colonies for the coming year takes place. As with other hive bodies configurations, we examine both hive supers. We sort out the frames for the drone brood. Unfinished and rather light-colored combs we do replace by golden brown ones. When possible, we accomplish this already at the beginning of July. On the 20th, we solely do an inspection and take away the honey storage chambers. During crop harvest or directly the day after, we feed 5-liter sugar solution and we increase gradually subsequent stores up to 15 to 20 kilos. All feeding activities ought to be finished by the 25th of August to the 10th of September. Sufficient room at the colony's disposal, secured by 2 supers and regular supplement of sugar food, guarantee a good production of brood and enough pollen store. Should an insufficiently egg-laying queen be found, we apply reserve colonies or nuclei so as to supersede the queen and strengthen the colony. We do not reduce colony entrances, but we protect them against rodents with an excluder 6 by 6 to 7 by 7 millimeters. At the beginning of September, we lay a meshwork sheet on the bottom board and at the same time we control the amount of food store left. The upper super has to be filled. The lower one must have a foot arch of about 5 centimeters high. The upper entrance in the top super remains open. Practice showed that wintering reserve colonies in the range of 10 to 20% colony population was enough to cover losses due to queen's death and underdeveloped brood extinction. For wintering a split colony, we use a single super and provide it with 7 to 10 kilos food store.
Matek a velikost plodového tělesa. U včelstev se špatně kladoucí matkou nasazujeme záložní včelstva nebo oddělky s cílem výměny matky a posílení včelstva.
In beekeeping with deep supers, we find many variations according to operating conditions. Jan Kolomy, for instance, fabricates and uses in his works hives made from spruce or Weymouth pine.
Nástavek je opatřen mělkými fálci, materiál smrk nebo vejmutovka.
The super itself has simple wall with low rubbets, the hive having simple bottom board and cover and consisting usually of 3 supers. Each of them has a closable upper entrance hole with a diameter of 25 mm. The farm is situated in Jeseníky Hills, approximately 500 meters above sea level. 2 full-time employees and 1 or 2 part-time workers operate 500 colonies and, as a parallel activity, fabricate hive supers. Around the 20th of July, provided the honeydew honey flow has ceased, honey is then completely extracted and the queen's excluder is taken away from the first super. A new super is furnished with suitable extracted combs and 1 building frame with a foundation strip. The super is placed over the original brood nest chamber and additional feeding by means of 3 inverted glass jars simultaneously is taken care of. If the queen does not show the expected qualities, a replacement through a strong split colony is indicated. After the feeder jars have been removed, the colony is covered and left for about 3 weeks. At the end of July, brood should inhabit 50 square decimeters. If this is not reached, after having found the queen in the original population, a nucleus is added. To winter satisfactorily, we increase the food store up to 18 to 21 kilos and close the feeding before the end of August. After that, management is reduced only to varroa control measures. In spring, the colonies are neither revised nor opened until the first enlargement of brood nest area. Instead of board ceiling, a transparent top screen is used for the super, and through the lifted cover, 1 glance shows the condition of the colony. Either in winter or spring, an empty side frame is put into the super and serves as a drone frame which would not be cut out. Building and breeding in the drone frame is the sign for enlargement, which requires a new super. The combs from the upper super are divided and placed into 2 supers. The remaining space in the brood nest area is filled up with foundations, the honey storage area with empty honey combs. Out of the first super, one can raise 2 brood combs to the upper super. Should there be need for enlargement, the following super should be put between the 2nd and 3rd floor. At the same time, the excluder is put between the 2nd and 3rd super. Swarm prevention measures are as follows: sufficient room already in early spring, large enough entrances and open upper entrances, enough possibility to draw the combs, avoid that capped brood combs be adjacent to each other. When the rape is halfway bloomed, we make nuclei. For 1 or 2 capped brood combs, 1 capped queen cell is needed 1 day before hatching.
oddělky rozšiřujeme mezi
Then foundations, extracted and virgin combs are added. A serious food shortage is supplemented in the beginning with dough and later with feeder jars.
takovacími lahvemi.
As shallow super beekeeping, we describe a method by which the frame's height is 17 centimeters.
17 cm. Naší praxi se tento druh
This practice has gradually proved itself in the last 20 years. Its greatest advantage opposed to deep supers is less forceful room enlargement and a lighter weight by filled supers.
menší hmotnost plných nástavků.
Disadvantage is more frames in the hive.
Pokud osazujeme
In
nové
case we build new hives with frame measurements other than we possess, the best habitation is with swarms or shaken of bees. For wintering, as a rule, we use 3 supers, sometimes a 4th is necessary.
První větší
The first bigger step, like reversing supers, would be then done when the colony has occupied 2 to 2.5 stories. The both upper supers, B, are filled with brood and at least a build-up nectar flow is initiated. In some regions it is already in April, for example during fruit trees blossoming or when rape nectar flow commences, or else at the time when the acacia blossoms. In hilly areas this can be at the commence of primary honey flow in June, provided no significant nectar supply was available and the spring was cold. The act of reversing supers, C, follows the same pattern of having the honey storage area put on top in the customary way, only that new supers are not necessitated. Essentially, through this act, the winter food store as well as the brood are placed on the bottom board and the lower super with empty combs is placed above as honey depot. First, we avoid the